Why did her hands shake when everything else in her training told her to stay calm? The bolt slid forward with a metallic click, chambering the round. She pressed her cheek against the worn stock of the rifle, feeling its coldness seep into her skin. The world beyond the scope blurred for a heartbeat, then sharpened into narrow lines of light and shadow. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest, faster than the rhythm of her breath, louder than the distant rumble of artillery in the hills. And still, her crosshairs did not move. That steadiness frightened her more than the tremor in her hands. Because this was no training range. No paper targets waiting silently at the far end. No instructor behind her shoulder with calm corrections. This was a rooftop, cracked tiles beneath her elbows, the scent of dust and oil heavy in the air, and men's voices echoing through broken streets below. She told herself to breathe. She told herself to wait. But she was already asking a question she didn't want to answer. How had she ended up here, alone, with one shot that could change everything? The mission briefing had been hours ago, though it replayed in her mind like a record stuck on a note. She remembered the table crowded with bodies, papers scattered, maps covered in ink. She had sat quietly, listening to the senior officers argue about timings and routes, about risks they claimed were worth it. And she had stayed silent, her hands folded, her eyes moving between them like a ghost no one wanted to notice. No one had asked her opinion. No one had even looked at her. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The silence at that table had cut deeper than any weapon could. She wasn't new to being ignored. She had grown up in silence, carried through classrooms, through training, through every corner of her life where her quiet nature was mistaken for weakness. They had trusted her to sit still, to follow, to not disturb the rhythm set by others, and she had allowed them to believe it. But she had also learned something in silence, how to watch, how to listen, how to wait until her moment came. Now, that moment pressed against her like the stock of her rifle. The rooftop wind tugged at her hair, strands brushing against her cheek, tickling her skin. She ignored it. Focus narrowed. The tremor in her hands was real, but the line of her aim perfectly still. Below, in the open courtyard of the shattered town, shadows moved. Shapes of armed men patrolling, voices bouncing off the walls. They laughed sometimes. They shouted. They carried themselves like they owned the ground they walked on. But they hadn't seen her yet. Her finger brushed against the trigger. One squeeze, and everything would begin. And still, her mind wandered back. Back to the small wooden porch of a house she hadn't seen in years. Her father sitting there, boots unlaced, rubbing his eyes with tired hands. He had once told her, "You don't have to be loud to be strong. Just be steady. Steady will carry you further than noise ever will." She hadn't believed him then. She had wanted to shout, to prove herself, to show the world she wasn't invisible. But she had learned, painfully, that noise rarely changed anything. Steady did. The steadiness in her aim reminded her of him. And for a second, the tremor in her hands felt less like fear and more like memory. The voice in her earpiece crackled, a man's whisper, urgent but careful. "Eyes on, confirm target." She swallowed, her throat was dry. "Confirming," she said softly, her voice barely more than air. She hadn't spoken in hours. The sound of her own voice startled her. Her spotter, an older soldier, crouched a few meters back, hidden under a torn canvas, shifted. He trusted her. Maybe the only one who did. He hadn't questioned her silence during the briefing. He hadn't needed to. He'd seen her on the range. He knew what she carried in her stillness. But even he didn't know the full reason she was here. Not yet. Her scope cut through the courtyard, searching. Windows shattered by blasts, doors half open like broken mouths. Then movement. A man stepped into the open, his rifle slung low, head turning as if scanning. Another followed, then another. And then the one she had been waiting for. The target. Her pulse quickened. The outline matched the photos, same walk, same posture, the same arrogance in the tilt of his head. And just like that, the silence around her became unbearable. Every mission had rules, precision, timing, control. But this one carried something heavier than rules, something unspoken, something personal. Her finger tightened. And then she hesitated. Why now? Why, after all the training, after all the certainty, did doubt bloom in her chest like wildfire? Because she remembered the photograph tucked in her pocket, not of him, the target, but of someone else, someone who had never come home, someone who had stood where she now lay, steady behind a rifle, and never made it off the rooftop. Her brother. The mission briefing had never mentioned him. The officers at the table hadn't cared. To them, her brother was just another name in a long list of casualties, another folded flag, another silence in someone's house. But to her, he was the reason she was here. She had taken his place, though no one asked her to. She had carried his dog tags in her bag, though no one knew. She had promised herself when the moment came she wouldn't shake, she wouldn't falter, she wouldn't let silence erase him. And yet her hands trembled. The crosshairs stayed steady. Her breath slowed. The world seemed to contract into a thin line of glass and steel. The man below raised his head. Her earpiece whispered again, "Take the shot." But she didn't move, not yet. Because she realized something else. This wasn't just about her brother. It wasn't just about her silence or the way others ignored her. It was about the truth she carried, quiet but unbroken. And maybe the shot itself mattered less than what it would mean. Her heartbeat slowed, the tremor faded, the steadiness her father spoke of returned. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, the sound tearing through the rooftop, echoing down the street like thunder rolling through hollow stone. Pigeons exploded into the sky, wings beating frantically. The man below dropped. Chaos followed. Shouts, running, the scramble of boots on broken concrete. Her spotter hissed into the radio, calling movements, directing teams she couldn't see. But she didn't hear them, not clearly. The world had gone muted like sound swallowed underwater. Her cheek still pressed to the stock, her hand still trembled. And yet her shot had been steady. Steadier than her heartbeat. She closed her eyes. And for the first time in years, she felt the silence wasn't crushing her. It was carrying her. The echo of her shot hadn't faded when the world below erupted. Boots pounded across cracked stone. Shouts rose sharp and panicked, bouncing between ruined walls. Radios crackled, orders barked, men scrambling into positions they thought were secure, but none of them knew where she was. She lay still, cheek pressed against the rifle, the scope now empty. The body she had dropped was no longer her focus. The mission never ended with one shot. The shot was only the beginning. So why did her chest feel heavy, as if she had already crossed some invisible finish line? Her spotter slid closer, voice sharp but low. "Good shot, clean. They'll be looking for the shooter now. We need to move." She didn't answer. Not yet. The ringing in her ears hadn't settled. Instead, she stared through the scope, scanning. Men moved like ants in the courtyard, searching corners, pointing rifles into empty windows. Some shouted names. Others pointed to the fallen figure, then to the sky, as if accusing the heavens of betrayal. Her breath caught. She had seen men fall before in training films, in grainy footage replayed for lessons. But seeing him collapse beneath her shot felt different, more final, more irreversible. Her finger still rested against the trigger, light but present, as if she wasn't ready to let go. Her spotter's hand touched her arm, not rough, not demanding, just steady. "We've done our part, let's move." She pulled her eye from the scope. The rooftop seemed brighter without the narrow circle of glass. Too bright. Sunlight pressed against her face, sharp and unkind. She rolled onto her back, staring up at the pale sky. For a second she thought of home again, that same porch, her father's voice, her brother's laughter, the smell of rain on dry earth. But this wasn't home. She sat up quickly, shouldering her pack, lifting the rifle with hands that were no longer trembling. They descended into the building through a jagged stairwell, shadows wrapping around them. The air smelled of mildew, plaster, and smoke. Every step sent dust spiraling upward. Her radio buzzed alive, a commanding voice controlled but urgent. Eagle 1 confirmed, target eliminated. Her spotter answered, confirmed, clean hit, extraction route needed. The reply came fast. Copy, stay low, expect increased patrol, extraction point unchanged. The channel cut to static. She tightened the strap across her chest, her lips pressed together, holding in the words that wanted to spill. She wanted to tell them about the weight in her chest, about how one squeeze of a finger could feel heavier than years of silence, but she didn't. She stayed quiet. They moved through the building step by careful step. A stairwell, a corridor littered with glass, a door hanging half-broken on its hinges. Every sound felt amplified. The crunch of gravel under boots, the distant bark of a dog, the buzz of flies over something left too long in the heat. Outside, sirens wailed. Not the kind that warned of storms or fires, the kind that signaled men with rifles were hunting. She adjusted her grip on the weapon. Her hands were steadier now, but the tremor lived elsewhere, deep in her chest, in the space between her ribs, in the fragile rhythm of her heart. Why had she hesitated before the shot? Why had memory threatened to paralyze her when all her training had demanded action? Because the mission had never been just about orders, not for her. She followed her spotter through a narrow alley, crouched low, shadows wrapping them in temporary safety. A child's bicycle lay abandoned against a wall, its paint chipped, one wheel bent. She stared at it longer than she should have, her pace slowing. Her spotter noticed. He gave a small shake of his head, not unkind. "Don't linger." She nodded, forcing herself forward. But the image stuck. The bicycle, the silence of the street, the reminder that this war wasn't fought only between rifles. It lived in the spaces left behind, in the quiet houses, in the toys no one played with, in the laughter that had been stolen. Her brother's laughter joined those echoes in her mind, and she wondered if, in some way, she had become what she once feared. Another shadow, another silence pressing down on someone else's world. They reached a checkpoint, a collapsed wall that opened into a long road. The sun bore down on cracked asphalt. Heat shimmered like glass, and at the far end, faint figures appeared. Patrol. They ducked back behind the wall, breaths held, rifles raised. Her spotter glanced at her. Options. She froze. He wasn't asking rhetorically. He wanted her answer. She hesitated, searching the map in her mind. The patrol moved steadily closer, unaware yet of them. To the left, open ground. To the right, narrow alleys, but unpredictable. Finally she spoke. Her voice cracked softly but held steady. Right alleys, less exposure. Her spotter nodded. No hesitation. He trusted her choice. That trust weighed on her more than the rifle, because it meant her silence wasn't invisibility, not to everyone. They moved right, slipping into the maze of crumbling walls and broken doors. The alleys twisted, turned, narrowed. The smell of rot mixed with the sharp tang of oil. Cats scattered at their approach, vanishing into shadows. Every corner turned was a gamble. Every shadow could hold an enemy. Her breath came shallow, her ears tuned to every creak, every shifting stone. The city felt alive, as if it were watching them. And then it happened. A voice close, sharp, shouting. Armed men appeared at the far end of the alley, rifles raised. She froze. Her spotter fired first, quick bursts, precise, forcing them back. She dropped to one knee, lifted her rifle, and lined up her sights. This time there was no tremor, no hesitation. She fired. The alley exploded with noise. Echoes crashed between the walls, drowning her heartbeat. One man fell, another ducked, the rest scattered. Silence returned, broken only by the ringing in her ears. Her spotter touched her shoulder again. "Move now." They pushed deeper into the maze, feet pounding against uneven stone. Behind them, voices rose in alarm. The hunt had grown fiercer. Her chest burned, lungs fighting the heat. Sweat stung her eyes, but her hands were steady now. She realized something as they ran. The steadiness didn't come from training alone. It came from choice. Each time she chose to act despite fear, she became steadier. Each time she broke the weight of silence with action, she grew stronger. They reached the edge of the alley. Beyond it stretched a canal, its water low and stagnant, littered with debris. Across the canal, a cluster of half-destroyed warehouses stood silent. The extraction point was there. But between them and safety was the open water. Her spotter looked at her. Sweat streaked his face. His eyes, though tired, still held clarity. Decision time, fast or slow. She swallowed hard. Fast meant running, exposed. Slow meant waiting, risking being surrounded. Her heartbeat quickened. Her brother's voice echoed in memory. "Sometimes you don't get a perfect choice, just the one you can live with." She whispered, "Fast." And before fear could argue, she broke from cover. Her boots hit the embankment, dirt scattering underfoot. She leapt down, sprinting across the cracked bed of the canal. Water splashed around her ankles. The weight of her rifle clattered against her chest. Every step felt like an eternity stretched thin. Shots rang out behind them. Bullets kicked up dirt and water. Voices shouted her direction. She kept running. Her breath tore from her lungs. Her heart pounded like artillery, but her pace didn't falter. They reached the far side, scrambling up the bank, pulling themselves over with raw strength. Her knees scraped, blood mingling with dust. She didn't care. They reached the warehouses, safety or something close to it. Her spotter leaned against the wall, chest heaving. He glanced at her, eyes narrowing. "You good?" She nodded, though her chest felt like it was splitting. "Steady," she whispered. And she realized it was true. The tremor was gone. But in its place, a heavier weight pressed on her. The knowledge that steadiness demanded sacrifice. And the question lingered, how much more was she willing to give? How quiet could a place be, when silence itself felt like it had been broken too many times? The warehouse loomed around her, its corrugated walls groaning with every push of wind, its broken windows bleeding light across the dusty floor. She stood just inside, rifle slung against her chest, her breath still ragged from the sprint. Dust motes floated in the sunlight, drifting like lazy snow, settling on crates that had long since rotted. Her chest heaved, her hands pressed against her knees. The ringing in her ears had dulled but not disappeared. Her spotter shut the heavy door behind them, the metal clanging in protest. He leaned against it, exhaling hard. "Temporary cover," he muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But they'll sweep this way soon enough." She didn't answer. She scanned the shadows, the rafters above, the corners half swallowed by debris. A lone chair sat broken in the center of the room. A ladder leaned against the far wall, missing 2 rungs. A crow fluttered out of the rafters, wings beating, before escaping through a hole in the roof. Every sound made her flinch. Not outwardly, her body didn't move, but inside her heartbeat jumped against her ribs, unwilling to settle. And yet her hands still steady. The contradiction unsettled her. Her body told 2 stories at once, fear and control, weakness and strength. Her spotter lowered his voice, more thoughtful now. "You've done well. First mission like this, most people freeze. You didn't." She wanted to believe him, but his words felt heavy, like praise she hadn't earned. Her eyes drifted to the far corner where a patch of wall bore scratches, names carved by hands she'd never know. A list of people who had been here before her, waiting, hiding, hopping. Some letters were deep, others faint. One name, half finished. Whoever started it hadn't had the chance to finish. Her throat tightened. She turned away. The radio on her spotter's shoulder hissed. A voice filtered through, broken but urgent. Eagle 1 patrols are converging on Sector 3. Expect company within minutes. Hold position until instructed. Reinforcements inbound. Her spotter replied, calm and clipped, "Copy." The channel died. Minutes, that was all they had. Minutes to breathe, to think, to wait for a door to crash open or for salvation to arrive. She dropped to the ground beside a crate, leaning her back against it. The wood pressed rough against her spine. She let her rifle rest across her lap, her fingers brushing the metal, not gripping, not loosening. Her eyes closed, and memory came again, uninvited. She saw her brother in his uniform leaning against the doorframe of their house. His grin was crooked, his hair too long, his eyes alive with the kind of light she had never been able to fake. He had teased her then, calling her too quiet to fight, too still to run. But when he said it, it hadn't felt cruel. It had felt like faith disguised as teasing. He had believed in her steadiness, long before she believed in it herself. And now he was gone. Her spotter's voice cut through the haze. "You're quiet." She opened her eyes. The irony almost made her smile. Quiet was all she had ever been. But here, in the half-light of the warehouse, with danger pressing closer by the minute, his observation felt sharper. He crouched across from her, resting on one knee, his face lined with sweat and dust. "You carry something," he said, softer now. "Most rookies' fear shows on their face. Yours doesn't, but it's there. It's in your silence." She looked at him, searching for the trap in his words. But there was none. Just an old soldier, reading her like he had read 1,000 before her. Her lips parted. She almost told him then. About her brother. About the dog tags hidden in her bag. About the truth that made every step of this mission heavier than steel. But she stopped, not yet. Because once spoken, truth couldn't be taken back, and some truths were safest in silence. A noise broke the moment, distant at first, then closer. The sound of an engine, slow, heavy. Both of them stiffened. Her spotter moved to the window, peering through a sliver of broken glass. She followed, crouching low. On the road outside, a truck rolled past. Its tires crushed gravel, its body armored and worn. Men sat in the back, rifles in hand, eyes scanning. She held her breath. The truck slowed. One man stood, pointing toward the warehouses, shouting. Her heart sank. The truck halted. Boots hit the ground. Figures began spreading out. Her spotter cursed under his breath. "They're sweeping. We don't have time." He looked at her, not with panic but with the calm of a man who had survived too many close calls. Choices again, fight or hide. Her throat dried. Hide and they risked being trapped. Fight and they risked being overwhelmed. Her brother's voice returned, faint but clear. "Sometimes survival isn't about what you do, it's about when you do it." She whispered, "Hide." The word tasted like surrender. But her spotter didn't question it. He nodded once, decisive. They moved fast, slipping behind a stack of crates near the back wall. The shadows there were deep, broken only by thin rays of sunlight slicing through cracks. She pressed herself into the darkness, rifle closed, breath shallow. Her pulse hammered, steady but fast. The door creaked open. Boots entered, heavy, deliberate. Voices murmured, foreign words bouncing between metal walls. She clenched her jaw. Sweat slid down her neck. The men moved deeper inside. One kicked the broken chair, sending it clattering across the floor. Another knocked against a crate, listening for echo. Her spotter's hand brushed her arm, a signal. Wait. She waited. One soldier came closer. Too close. His boots scraped against the floor just meters from where she crouched. She could smell the oil on his rifle, the sweat on his skin. Her finger found the trigger. Her body screamed to act, but her spotter's hand pressed firmer, steadying her. The soldier paused. He muttered something, then turned away, his boots fatting as he rejoined the others. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, shouts from outside, a call, a signal. The men filed out one by one. The door slammed shut again. Engines roared. The truck rumbled away. Silence. Her breath escaped in a rush. Her chest ached from holding it so long. She pressed her forehead against the rifle, relief and exhaustion flooding her at once. Her spotter exhaled slowly. You chose right. But she wasn't sure. Her silence had saved them, but it had also kept her from speaking, from acting, from telling the truth she carried. And the weight of that silence grew heavier still. The radio crackled again, alive with static. Eagle 1 extraction window closing. Reinforcements delayed. Hold until further notice. Her spotter cursed softly, of course. She leaned back against the crate, closing her eyes. How long could steadiness last when silence kept pressing in? She didn't know, but the answer was coming. She could feel it. And when it came, her silence would no longer protect her. It would reveal her. How long could silence hold before it cracked under its own weight? The warehouse walls groaned against the wind, metal bending like tired bones. She sat on the cold floor, rifle across her lap, eyes fixed on a slit of light breaking through the doorframe. Her chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, but inside, her thoughts churned like storm water trapped behind a dam. Her spotter paced slowly, his boots whispering against concrete. He checked his watch, then the radio, then the door again, each movement precise, practiced. A man who trusted the ritual of repetition to keep him sane. She didn't move. Minutes crawled. Voices outside had faded, but that didn't mean safety. Safety was never real. It was a pause, a fragile space between chaos and its return. The radio buzzed alive. Static first, then a voice, rough but steady. Eagle 1, this is Falcon Team. Approaching from North Sector. 2 minutes out, hold position. Relief washed briefly across her spotter's face. Reinforcements, a small victory. But her chest tightened instead of loosening, because reinforcements meant people. People meant questions, and questions demanded answers. She wasn't ready for answers. The door creaked open minutes later, hinges crying. 4 figures slipped inside, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. Their uniforms bore dust and sweat, faces streaked with grime, but their movements disciplined, efficient. Her spotter raised a hand in silent signal, friendly. The tension eased just slightly, weapons lowered. The team leader, a woman with dark hair tied back in a frayed band, stepped forward. Her gaze scanned the room, then settled on her. You're the shooter. The words cut sharper than intended. Not an accusation, not praise, just fact. She nodded once. The leader's eyes lingered as if weighing something. Then she turned to her spotter. We hold here until extraction window clears. Patrols are heavier than expected. Everyone stay sharp. Orders moved like currents. The team dispersed, one to the door, another to the rafters, another to the broken windows. Each checked angles, corners, sight lines. They moved with the rhythm of people who had done this too many times, who knew waiting was sometimes more dangerous than moving. She stayed where she was, rifle steady, eyes steady, silence steady. But inside, she felt the cracks forming. One of the reinforcements, a younger soldier with freckles smeared under dirt, slid down against the wall near her. He exhaled hard, removing his helmet, letting sweat drip from his hair. His rifle rested across his knees. He glanced at her, then offered a half-smile. First time out. She hesitated, yes. He nodded, unsurprised. Thought so. You've got the look. First time always feels like the ground won't stop moving under you. She tilted her head slightly. Does it stop? His smile faltered. His eyes dropped to the rifle in his lap. No, you just learn to move with it. The words lingered, honest, heavy. He didn't ask her name. She didn't ask his. Names felt fragile here, too easy to break. Her spotter moved past, checking a window. The leader adjusted the radio. The others whispered quietly about routes, about timing, about how long it might take. She let her gaze wander again to the scratches on the wall, names carved in desperation, waiting for something that never came. Her hand brushed against her pocket, feeling the small weight there. The dog tags, cold metal pressed against fabric. Her brother's silence carried with her. She almost pulled them out, almost, but stopped, not yet. The freckled soldier spoke again, softer now. "You hesitated out there, didn't you?" Her chest tightened. "What?" He shrugged. "Your eyes, you've got that look, like you pulled the trigger but something inside you stayed behind." She looked away, her throat closed. He didn't press, just leaned his head back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. "I hesitated once. Different mission, different city, cost us a man." Silence stretched between them, heavier than the walls. She wanted to say something, anything. That she had hesitated but the shot had landed. That she carried someone else's silence with her. That every trigger pull wasn't just about targets but about ghosts. But the words stayed trapped, caught behind her teeth. The leader's voice cut through. "Movement outside, positions." The warehouse shifted instantly, weapons raised, eyes to sights, breath held. She pressed her cheek to the rifle again, scope narrowing the world. Shadows moved beyond the broken windows. Figures in the street, scanning, searching. Patrols again. Her finger brushed the trigger. The steadiness returned. But her chest screamed with the memory of her brother, with the bicycle on the street, with the names on the wall. The leader's hand lifted in signal. "Hold, wait." The patrol paused outside. One man pointed to the building. Another shook his head. Seconds stretched. Finally, the patrol moved on, boots fatting, voices trailing. Relief washed like a slow tide, shoulders eased, rifles lowered. But her heart didn't ease. Because she realized something dangerous. Each time silence saved her, it demanded something in return. Each time she waited, each time she hid, each time she chose not to speak, the weight grew. And she couldn't carry it forever. Her spotter crouched beside her. His eyes met hers, steady, unreadable. Then he said quietly, almost too quietly to hear, "Why are you really here?" Her breath caught. The question cracked something open inside her. Because he knew. Maybe not the details, maybe not the truth in her pocket, but he knew. She wanted to answer, to spill the silence into sound, to finally share the truth that had been pressing against her since the briefing, since the rooftop, since the moment her brother didn't come home. But outside, another engine rumbled. The moment vanished. The leader raised her hand sharply. "Contact inbound, everyone ready." The warehouse tensed again. Silence shifted into anticipation. And her words died in her throat. "Not yet." The warehouse no longer felt like shelter. It was a cage. Every sound pressed closer. The shuffle of boots in the distance, the low growl of engines rolling down the street, the faint crackle of radios carried by men who were hunting. The team inside felt it too. Their silence grew heavier, their movements sharper. Even the dust seemed to hang in the air, unwilling to settle. She pressed her back against the wall, rifle balanced against her knees. Her breath was measured, but her pulse betrayed her. In her ears it was thunder. Her spotter crouched by the window, peering through a jagged hole in the glass. He held his rifle steady, eyes tracking the shadows outside. But she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his teeth clenched with every flicker of movement. The team leader's voice was calm, deliberate. "Extraction window moves in 20. We hold until then. No engagement unless necessary." Hold, always hold, the hardest order to obey. The freckled soldier, the one who had spoken to her earlier, shifted beside her. His rifle lay across his lap, but his hands fidgeted with the sling strap, restless. He was young, too young. His eyes betrayed the truth. He wanted it over, wanted movement, wanted anything but waiting. She knew that feeling too well. Her gaze drifted again to the scratches on the wall, each mark etched deep, desperate. Not names this time, just lines, tallies, counting days, or maybe hours. Someone had once measured their silence in strokes of metal against concrete. Her hand brushed her pocket. The dog tags were still there, heavy, cold. They seemed to grow heavier every minute, like gravity itself was conspiring against her silence. The spotter shifted, turning his head slightly toward her. They're circling. Won't take long before they double back. The leader nodded. Then we make them believe this place is empty, lights out, quiet. Everyone moved to their positions again. The warehouse became a still life of shadows and steel. She lowered herself prone, cheek pressed to the stock of her rifle. Through the scope, the world narrowed again. The street outside blurred into crosshairs and focus. And then she saw it. Not just soldiers in the street, not just patrols, but a vehicle armored, its lights sweeping the road like a predator searching for prey. The rumble of its engine vibrated through the floor, through her bones. The leader's whisper cut the tension. "Stay down." The vehicle slowed outside. Its headlights sliced across the warehouse wall, white beams illuminating dust in the air. A figure stepped out, helmeted, armed, his flashlight darting toward the cracks in the windows. Her finger rested on the trigger, her breath stilled. She could end him now, one shot clean. But one shot meant more. It meant sound. It meant discovery. It meant the silence shattered and all the weight of the outside world crashing in. She held her breath, pressed her cheek harder to the stock. The man's light lingered on the window, long enough for him to sense something, long enough for her to know he was listening to the same silence she was. Then he turned away. The vehicle's engine roared and the patrol moved on. The team exhaled in unison, a soundless release. But her chest didn't ease, because she realized what almost happened. She realized how close she had come to breaking the silence herself. And she realized something deeper. Every second she held her silence, it wasn't just strategy. It was her brother's absence pressing down on her, his dog tags burning a hole in her pocket, his voice, lost but alive in her head, "Don't break until it matters." The freckled soldier glanced at her, whispering, "You almost took it, didn't you?" Her eyes snapped to him, "What?" He shrugged, soft but certain. "The shot, I saw it in your shoulders, you wanted it." Her lips parted but no words came. The leader cut in sharply, eyes on the street, no talking. The silence returned, but the boy's words stayed needling. She wanted to explain. She wanted to say it wasn't about the shot, wasn't about the kill. It was about the silence inside her, the one she carried since the day she stood over her brother's empty bed, the one she couldn't speak aloud because it was heavier than truth. But her throat locked. The minutes crawled. Boots outside echoed, faded, returned again. Engines rumbled, paused, then moved on. The warehouse breathed with the rhythm of tension and reprieve. At some point, the freckled soldier leaned closer again, voice barely a whisper. "When this is over, tell me, whatever it is you're carrying, you'll choke on it if you don't." Her chest ached. She wanted to tell him now, to pull the dog tags from her pocket, to place them in his hand, to say, "This is why I'm here, this is the silence I carry." But outside the sound changed. Engines again, but more this time. Louder, closer, multiple vehicles, boots, dozens of them hammering against the street. The leader's hand lifted, sharp. "Positions, get ready, this is it." The warehouse snapped alive, rifles raised, eyes narrowed, breath stilled. She pressed into her scope again. The street filled with shadows, figures moving in formation, lights sweeping across broken windows. The enemy wasn't just passing now. They were searching. And the silence that had protected them all this time was about to break. She felt her finger tighten against the trigger. The weight in her pocket pulled harder. Her brother's silence whispered louder. and for the first time, she wasn't sure if she could keep it hidden anymore. The silence didn't break with a gunshot. It broke with a footstep. Heavy, intentional, directly outside the wall. She felt it vibrate through the concrete floor beneath her cheek. Then another. Then dozens more. Boots moving in rhythm, forming a circle around the warehouse. The hunters had closed in. The leader's voice was a razor-thin whisper. "They know we're here." Her spotter shifted, finger against the trigger guard, jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. Across the room, the freckled soldier's lips parted, the smallest tremor in his breath betraying the panic he tried to bury. The silence stretched, unbearably long. Then a voice outside, amplified, commanding, cruel, not English, but the tone said enough, "Surrender." Her heartbeat kicked against her ribs, too loud, too wild. She pressed harder against her rifle stock, grounding herself. The leader motioned with his hand, not an option. They were staying, they were fighting. But fighting meant sound, sound meant exposure, and exposure meant she swallowed. Her brother's voice rose in her memory, cutting sharp through the fear. "Don't waste it. Don't break until it matters." The door rattled, a metal clang as hands tested the lock, a barked order, then silence again. Her muscles coiled. The team's rifles rose like a single organism. Everyone held breath. Everyone knew what was coming. The blast was sudden, an explosive shattering of the door, splinters and steel fragments bursting inward. A flash, a concussion of sound that tore the silence into ribbons. Figures stormed through the breach, shadows against shadows, muzzles lifted. Her shot broke before her heartbeat caught up. One man fell, then another. Her hands shook as they always did, but the rifle stayed steady, every round exact. The warehouse thundered with overlapping gunfire, the team answering in desperate unison. The air filled with smoke, with dust, with the acrid bite of burned powder. Every sense narrowed into survival. Every choice now was instinct. She fired again and again, pulling herself deeper into the rhythm of recoil and reset, recoil and reset. Her heartbeat no longer mattered, it was her breath, her focus, her silence now weaponized. The freckled soldier shouted something, words lost in the chaos. His rifle barked beside her, muzzle flashes lighting his face in strobing terror. Her spotter stayed calm, steady, cutting targets clean. The leader barked commands, voice iron even as bullets split the air around him. But the enemy kept coming. Through the door, through shattered windows, boots on concrete, close now, too close. She dropped one as he climbed through the frame, his body crumpling forward into the room. She rolled, chambered, aimed again. Her shoulder screamed with every shot, but she forced it silent. And then the freckled soldier cried out. She spun. He was down, clutching his thigh, blood blooming dark through his fatigues. His rifle lay inches from his hand, but his grip trembled, useless. She didn't think, she moved. Sliding across the floor, she pressed herself to his side, firing a cover shot through the smoke. Her rifle barked, dropping another shadow that loomed too close. His eyes locked onto hers, wide with fear, wet with something else, shame. "I can't." "Yes, you can." Her voice was sharp, the first time she'd let it cut the air in hours. "Stay with me." She dragged him back, one arm hauling his vest, the other snapping her rifle into position whenever a shape dared breach the haze. Her hands shook, but the shots still landed, still bought seconds. The spotter shouted her name, but his voice was swallowed by thunder. The leader's commands blurred into the storm. The boy gasped, clutching her sleeve. Why are you here? You shouldn't be here." Her throat caught. Words clawed up, desperate to spill. The truth, the tags in her pocket, the silence she had sworn to keep. And for the first time, she almost told him. But then another blast. The wall at their flank blew inward, concrete dust and fire erupting in a violent bloom. She shielded him with her body, the impact rattling her teeth, her lungs burning from the shockwave. Her ears rang, The world became muffled chaos. Shapes moved in smoke, her scope blurred. She pressed the boy flat, crawling over him, rifle braced. Through the ringing silence, one sound pierced clear: footsteps, close, hunting. Her finger tightened. The shadow appeared through the haze, rifle raised. Her shot was steadier than her heartbeat. The figure dropped, crumpling inches from them. His weapon clattered against concrete, sliding to a stop near her knee. The boy's breathing slowed, his chest rising shallow. She pressed her hand to his wound, blood slick and hot against her palm. "Stay awake," she commanded, her voice cracking. "Don't close your eyes, look at me." He tried to speak, but his voice broke, weak. "Tell me what you're carrying." Her throat burned. Her hands shook harder, not from fear, but from the weight she had buried for too long. The tags dug into her side, cold, demanding. Her lips parted, finally, maybe, but the leader's shout cut through. "Fall back, east wall, now." She froze, the choice slammed into her chest. Speak or survive, break or bury. Her silence screamed inside her, louder than the gunfire. She grabbed the boy's vest, hauling him again, dragging him toward the others. Her shoulder burned, her knees bruised, but she pulled, step by brutal step, as bullets chewed through wood and steel around them. The east wall gaped open now, a ragged hole from the blast. Smoke drifted outward, lit by moonlight. Their escape, their only chance. Her spotter covered them, precise, unshakable. The leader's rifle spat fury into the smoke. She pulled the boy through, collapsing to her knees outside, gasping the first breath of cold night air. The others followed, one by one, battered but alive. The city stretched before them, dark, broken, hostile, not safety, not yet. But they were out for now. The boy clutched her wrist, voice ragged. "You still haven't told me." She swallowed hard, staring at him, her silence trembling on the edge of breaking. But behind them, the warehouse roared with fire, and ahead, the night stretched long, unforgiving. The truth would have to wait. For one more breath. For one more step. For one more silence. How far could they run before the night swallowed them whole? The streets stretched black and fractured, shadows clawing at the edges of dim light. Concrete cracked underfoot, littered with debris and glass, every step threatening to betray them. She dragged the boy behind her, weight heavy, blood slick on her gloves, and felt every muscle scream in protest. Her rifle remained raised, vigilant, every sense taut, every breath measured. Behind them, the warehouse burned, a dull roar, smoke spiraling into the moonlight. The enemy had been momentarily delayed, but the hunt was far from over. Her spotter led, scanning each alley, every corner. His pace deliberate, though tension etched deep lines into his face. He glanced back once, eyes meeting hers. The unspoken question hung, "How much more can you endure?" She ignored it. The boy coughed, blood bubbling at the corner of his mouth. Why are we doing this?" he gasped, voice trembling. She didn't answer immediately. She pulled him closer, muffling his face against her chest. "Because we have to," she whispered, not lying, not fully. The alley turned jagged, opening into a plaza littered with wrecked vehicles and shattered streetlights. Her heart tightened. Open ground, too much exposure. The freckled soldier gasped beside her, struggling to keep pace. His eyes darted around, reflecting terror and awe in equal measure. She's not even pausing," he muttered. "How do you?" She didn't respond. How could she explain that movement, action, survival were all she had left to cling to? That silence was her armor, steadiness her weapon. Words were useless here, heavier than bullets. A distant shout broke the rhythm of their flight. Enemy patrols, dozens converging, rifles raised, boots pounding. She pulled the boy into a shadowed doorway. Her back pressed against the wall, eyes narrowing, scanning the street. Her spotter crouched next to her, voice low but firm. "We can't stay, too many, we go now." She nodded, gripping the boy tighter. His weight was unbearable yet grounding. The dog tags pressed into her side, cold against her ribs, a constant reminder. Her brother's voice echoed inside her, "Don't break until it matters." And she realized it mattered now. They surged forward, moving like shadows through the fractured night. The boy's injured leg slowed them, forcing her to adjust her rhythm, to take weight, to absorb momentum. Each alley was a gamble, each corner a risk. Every sound, footsteps, metal scraping, distant shouts, pushed adrenaline into her veins like fire. The freckled soldier stumbled, cursing softly, but she didn't pause. She caught his arm, pulling him up, dragging him through debris. Her rifle swung automatically with each movement, ready, precise. The leader shouted from behind, "East wall, keep moving. Extraction point in sight." The plaza opened again, this time larger, strewn with wrecked vehicles and abandoned carts. The moon reflected off broken glass, sharp as knives. She scanned, calculating angles, pathways, threats. One patrol appeared on the far side, rifles sweeping, voices barking. Her finger tightened, breath stilled, heartbeat steady. The shot was deliberate, calculated, surgical. The figure fell. Silence followed, not peace, just a pause in chaos. The boy looked at her, wide-eyed. How can you be so?" She pressed a finger to her lips, quiet. The freckled soldier stared, then muttered under his breath, "She's not just quiet, she's like a ghost." She wanted to answer. She wanted to tell them that ghostliness was the price she paid for surviving the day her brother didn't. That every pull of the trigger, every step through shadow, carried the weight of a promise she had made to him. But the words remained trapped. The spotter's hand landed on her shoulder. "Checkpoint ahead," he whispered. "Once we reach it, you'll have cover, you can rest, but we need speed now." She nodded, hauling the boy forward. Every step was agony and salvation. Every breath, a reminder of stakes higher than fear. They reached a narrow alley leading toward the checkpoint. Shadows pressed close on both sides. She counted patrols, too many, too close. Every movement a potential death sentence. Her chest pressed against the boy's. She whispered instructions, guiding, steadying, moving like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of survival. Then another sound, a low hum, mechanical, a drone. No, closer, larger footsteps, too many, and now they had been flanked. The boy panicked. I can't go faster." Her hands gripped him, steady, unyielding. "Yes, you can, trust me, breathe with me, step, step, step." And he did. For a moment they moved in unison. The enemy closed, voices shouting, rifles raised. She pivoted, rifle swinging with a precision honed in silence and practice. One down, another staggered, chaos, smoke, shadows, the warehouse behind them now a distant memory burning quietly under the night sky. Her spotter moved beside her, cutting threats with surgical calm. The leader barked orders, her voice slicing through the noise like a blade. They reached the checkpoint. Cover, temporary sanctuary. The boy collapsed to the ground, exhaustion breaking through fear. Blood ran from his legs, staining her gloves. She pressed a hand to his wound, murmuring reassurances she didn't feel. "You'll be okay, stay with me." The freckled soldier sank beside them, breathing ragged. His eyes finally met hers. You're more than a ghost, you're." She shook her head, pulling her gaze back to the night. "Not yet, not until the end." Behind her, the sounds of pursuit faded slightly. Patrols moved past, believing the shadows had swallowed them. She exhaled, long and slow, allowing the first taste of relief to touch her lungs. But relief was shallow, temporary. She could feel the dog tags pressing harder now, the memory of her brother sharper, the silence she had kept almost unbearable. The boy's voice whispered, soft and fragile. "Please tell me, I need to know. Why are you really here?" Her hands froze, her finger hovered near the trigger, breath caught. The dog tags burned through fabric, demanding release. She swallowed. The night stretched around them, tense and waiting. For the first time in hours, she considered the cost of words, the cost of truth. And she realized some silences could no longer protect. Some truths had to be spoken. Her lips parted. The weight of years of ghosts of a brother's absence pressed forward. But outside, the night remained unforgiving. The hunt was not yet over, the path to safety still uncertain. And she understood, speaking now could save them, or it could end everything. Her hands tightened around the rifle. Her chest rose with shallow, ragged breaths. Her silence was ending. Not with hesitation, not with fear, but with purpose. How much weight could one soul carry before it finally broke? They huddled in the shadowed checkpoint, breaths ragged, bodies slick with sweat and blood. The boy's injured leg lay across her lap. The freckled soldier leaned against a wall, wide-eyed and trembling, the leader scanning the horizon like she could hold danger at bay with her gaze alone. And she sat there, rifle resting across her knees, hands slick with his blood, and the cold weight of the dog tags pressing against her side. The silence had stretched so long, it had become a second skin. But now it chafed against her like a rope around her ribs, tightening with each heartbeat. The boy's voice came again, hesitant, almost pleading. "Please tell me, I need to know. Why are you really here?" She looked at him, really looked. Pale face streaked with grime, fear, and awe tangled in his wide eyes, his trust laid bare. The freckled soldier and even her spotter watched silently, waiting, unspoken permission in their tensioned posture. Her fingers brushed the dog tags through the fabric. She felt the cold metal bite into her palm. She swallowed. The story spilled out, slow and deliberate, each word carrying the weight she had buried for years. "My brother, he didn't make it home. I failed him before I even knew it. These tags, these are his. And I carry them because every mission, every step, every choice I make is to honor him, to finish what he couldn't, to survive so his silence wasn't in vain." The words hung in the air. The boy's mouth opened, then closed. No sound. The freckled soldier stared, pale, understanding dawning. The spotter's jaw tightened, but there was no reproach, only recognition. The leader's eyes softened slightly, just the faintest crease of empathy across a face carved from countless conflicts. The weight of the confession lingered longer than any gunfire. Then slowly the boy touched the tags, fingers trembling. I get it," he whispered. "I get why you move like this, why you keep going." She exhaled, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The tension in her chest eased slightly, but the night wasn't over. Not yet. Danger still pressed, still circled, still hunted. The leader's voice broke through, sharp but not harsh. "Time to move. Extraction's inbound, but we're not out of the woods. Stay focused." She nodded, the confession heavy but freeing. The dog tags pressed against her heart, not just a weight of grief, but a tether to the courage she had summoned for this mission. They moved as one again, careful and deliberate. Her rifle ready, but her mind finally unburdened, the silence no longer carrying secrets but purpose. The streets remained fractured, empty, yet alive with threat. Each alley, each corner a gamble, but now the weight of fear had shifted. It was lighter because she had given voice to what had lived in shadow for too long. The boy hobbled beside her, supported by her shoulder. His trust was fragile, but it was real. The freckled soldier followed, more steady now, understanding that courage was not the absence of fear, but the act of moving through it. The spotter covered their rear, every movement precise, every shot calculated, every breath measured. And through it all, she moved, steady, deliberate, but no longer silent in her soul. Extraction came at last. The vehicle, a nondescript van, armored, humming with life, rolled up to the rendezvous point. Its lights cut through the shadows like hope slicing darkness. They boarded quickly. The van's interior smelled of oil and cold metal, but it felt like sanctuary. The boy collapsed against a seat, closing his eyes. She sat opposite, holding the dog tags now openly, letting their weight remind her of why she had endured, why she had fought, why she had survived. The freckled soldier settled beside her, glancing at her with awe and respect. You're incredible," he muttered. "I've never seen anyone." She allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Sometimes, steadiness is the only thing that keeps you alive. Her spotter leaned back, voice calm but carrying weight. And sometimes, it's the silence that protects you until the right moment. The leader sat at the front, eyes scanning the street one last time. Then she nodded to them all. "Mission complete. We're not out of danger, but we've made it this far. Remember that." The van rolled through the fractured streets, moving steadily toward safety. Behind them, the city waited, indifferent but alive with shadows and memories. She held the dog tags in her palm, fingertips tracing the worn metal. They were more than memory now. They were promise, reminder, anchor. The boy's hand reached for hers, small and trusting. "Thank you," he whispered. She squeezed his hand gently. "No, thank you for trusting me." The freckled soldier looked at her, eyes bright with a newfound respect. "You carried all of that and still moved like you were unbreakable." She shook her head slightly. "Unbreakable isn't the point. Surviving is, and keeping promises even when no one sees them. That's what matters." Her spotter's voice cut softly through the hum of the van. "You've done more than survive. You've taught them all something tonight, even if they don't say it." Outside, the night stretched long. Stars peeked through clouds, distant and cold. The city whispered with the aftermath of chaos, but they were moving beyond it, beyond fear, beyond silence. And she realized sometimes courage isn't loud. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. She pressed the dog tags against her chest. Her brother's presence felt near, quiet but unyielding. She exhaled steady and let herself finally feel it. The relief of survival, the clarity of purpose, the deep, resonant power of truth shared. The van rolled on. The city passed in shadows and light. Faces around her were battered but alive, weary but unbroken. And in that moment, she understood that silence had not just protected her, it had preserved her heart until the right moment to reveal it. Her eyes drifted to the boy, then the freckled soldier, then to the spotter. Each one bore scars, visible and hidden, but they moved forward together. And she knew, finally, that this was the point of it all. Not heroics, not glory, not the end of danger, but the quiet, resolute act of carrying truth, honor, and memory through the darkness, so that when the world demanded it, she could act, steady, unwavering, and whole. The dog tags gleamed faintly under the dim light of the van. Cold, solid, real, a promise kept. And she allowed herself, at last, to exhale completely. Outside, the night waited indifferent, but inside, a quiet strength lingered. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And she had acted,